Përshëndetje and welcome to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. This week I've decided to tackle one topic, one that's very hot both amongst the foreign community and Albanians, and that is the real estate market. From renting property to buying homes throughout the country, this is a very hot topic, and I have invited to the studio today two experts to discuss the matter in a bit more detail. First up, we have MP Lavdrim Krashi, who has actually lived and worked in the UK with a speciality in housing. And I have Ronaldo Piperia, a realtor and the chief executive of the National Albanian Real Estate Association. Welcome to Inside Albania.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now, we were already getting into quite a heated debate before the cameras started rolling, so I hope we can keep this going. So I've brought you both here today to talk about the property situation in Albania. I am a member of lots of expat groups on Facebook. And one of the main topics at the moment is foreign people. Should I invest in Albania? Should I buy property here? I want to buy property here, or I want to rent an apartment. And also now increasingly, oh my God, the costs are so high, the prices have gone up, what's happening, etc. Now, I looked on Instagram and Facebook at lots of real estate agents, and there was such a wide variety on offer from what I consider quite reasonable. I understand Albania is becoming more popular now. People want to invest here, so prices are going to go up. But these are just a couple of examples I found which particularly stood out to me. So in Nistani Djetor area of Tirana, a 1x1 68 square meter apartment for 138,000 euros. And it wasn't anything really fancy, you know, it wasn't sort of gold plated or anything like that. It was a standard looking apartment. In Ali Demi, not far from where I live, 112 square meters, 2x2, 230,000 euros. Again, not, it looked modern, but it was quite cheap, in my opinion. It wasn't sort of high-end designer. Comuna Parisit, a 2+1, 113 square meters, 259,000 euros. This is high. If you think the average Albanian person is earning sort of 500, 600 euros, something around this a month in Tirana, these prices are pretty high. What are your thoughts on these? You must have seen these on social media as well. Lavdrim, to you first.
All these figures you have quoted, it reminds me of the United Kingdom, England, perhaps not London so much, but the rest of the country, where you can find properties at far cheaper rates than what you have just quoted, and definitely far more affordable or cheaper in terms of purchasing properties. Now, I have my own views, of course, because I'm my own self. Although I'm attached to a political party, I'm attached to a public body or institution. In my view, what happened in Albania, because we have to put some context into this, what happened in Albania in early 1990s, was what we call a privatization of the housing stock, which is similar to selling council homes in the United Kingdom, which is extremely well regulated, and people know exactly what to expect and when. And they also know, the reason why that is done is because the government has a responsibility to create a market that is affordable for more and more people in the society. Of course, there are issues, things that have gone wrong there, but overall, it's a quite regulated market. As we know in the UK, and I'll draw some comparisons here, in the UK you have the main legislation, which is up and running and current even to this day, started in the 1970s. For us, Albanians, were very proud because, I'll tell you a little story, one of the main reasons why the Homelessness Act was introduced in the 1970s was because of Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa visited the United Kingdom, London precisely, just after she was she won the Nobel Prize. And when she visited London, she was astonished by the high number of homeless people living in the streets of London especially. And when she went to meet the Prime Minister, I'll cut it very short, to meet the Prime Minister, she went off record and said, could I talk about homelessness and can you do something about it? And as a result, we have the Homelessness Act 1977 in the United Kingdom, which addresses the issue of homelessness. Now, if I compare that to what happened in Albania in early 1990s, the entire housing stock dwellings were publicly owned. And I'm talking about towns and cities, not the rural areas. What they did here, what we did, because I'm, of course, part of this, we decided to sell it to owner-occupiers, but at an extremely, extremely low rate. So a massive reduction. In the UK, for example, when you sell council stock, you sell at maximum, you can get a discount of 70% of the value, but it's capped at £100,000, which in terms of figures and numbers, in London, you're really talking about at a discount of about £100,000. So for a property worth 500,000, you can purchase it for 400,000, which is still very good value for money when it comes to public bodies and institutions. Here, they did completely the opposite. They sold it for peanuts. They sold it for nothing.
Yes.
They sold it for about £100 on average, that is. So people could purchase a property, and in Albania, the standard is, just like in the UK, we have a standard of a 3-bedroom property when we refer to properties. In Albania, they refer to a property which is about 100 square meters, which is about 70 square feet. So when they sold it to owner-occupiers, they sold it so cheaply that it put this number of people, of course, the individuals who were already tenants, they benefited massively from it, but they only represented about 30% of the population. So that means that 70% were the have-nots and 30% were the haves. So those figures that you are quoting, for example, in terms of rent, and they refer to new build properties, but also old properties are just as expensive, sometimes even more, because they are in better areas, in more central.
Yes.
Now, this is the discrepancy that we have had. I only brought this as an example just so that we understand where the housing market in the UK is and why that is the case, and why the housing market in Albania is and why this is the case. So for me, this is the key. What happened in early 1990s, in my opinion, shouldn't have happened. However, what has gone under the bridge will never return back. So we need to focus on what we can do in the future. We can follow, and I can say this with great pride, we can follow the British example, which means more involvement from public institutions, central government, of course, in terms of taxation, but also local government. Now, there is no difference today between Tirana and London, and Tirana and many other cities in the United Kingdom. It may be slightly different when it comes to smaller towns and villages, rural areas, but in terms of urban areas, you can follow the British example.
Yes.
One of the reasons, or one of the things that we don't do in Albania that is done in the United Kingdom is, firstly, there has to be definitions. What is affordable properties? And for different people, it's different. So if you get a young couple, for example, as you referred to in your introduction, it is very hard for them to get in the property ladder. But that is the case in the United Kingdom too.
Yes.
But there are ways of dealing with it.
There are schemes.
There are schemes that are promoted by central government. And when I say promoted, of course, it means a financial commitment. That is a commitment to the taxpayer, because at the end of the day, it has to be funded by the taxpayer, but also local government. When it comes to housing, we have to do something in Albania about housing benefit, because so far we've addressed the market, so the purchasing. The renters is a big sector too. A lot has to be done, and we can draw on the example from the United Kingdom. Other European countries are no different, with minor differences between them. But what we need to do is we need to put a minimum level. What we call in the UK is the universal credit. So if you fall below a certain amount of money every month or every year, then the state must intervene. It doesn't mean that you are employed. You could be employed and still be entitled to some tax credits. But of course, if you are unemployed, you can be entitled to it as well. And what it needs to change here is what we call in the United Kingdom local housing allowances.
Yes.
In here, they call it reference price, extremely high prices. But if you put local housing allowances that can enable people to rent in the private sector, it even goes into the purchasing sector as well. but at least for the private sector renters market, we need to regulate so that people who are below, it's not their fault that they are below the level. It's all of our fault. It's the government fault. It's the public's fault. It's all of our fault if there are people who live in poor housing, people who live in unaffordable housing. And it is our responsibility to make sure that it is affordable. Generally speaking, there is a misconception in Albania about social housing. They think that social housing is housing for the poor. That is not the case. It is completely different. Social housing is there to make sure that it plays a massive role in regulating prices, both for the renting sector as well as the sales.
Which is where you come in.
It's obvious that the government has a lot of homeworks to do.
All governments have a lot of work to do.
And for sure, because of being in Albania, we lack a lot of data. For example, if we talk today, if we try to find it publicly, we don't know how many dwellings do we have all over Albania. How many titles do we have all over Albania? What is plot? What is, free plot? What is agriculture? What is, apartment building? What is villa? So we are trying to discover the market and to talk about the market, but we lack a lot of data. For sure, that figures they are part of the reality, but the reality is not all about
just
that.
Yes.
Not just that. So we can go from Fresco to Combinat area, and you can find 750, 800 euro per square meter within the ring, the traditional ring.
But this is getting less and less, and the more people see prices like this, the more they're going to...
It's getting less and less, and if we see the 23rd, last year we saw that the prices has been increasing a bit more quickly, especially in the suburb area. And plus, we need to understand that there are a lot of reconstruction projects because of the earthquake that has. So all of that demand has been going in that part of Tirana. For sure, within the ring, prices goes from 1,500 euro per square meter to
the sky is the limit.
No, I wouldn't say that the sky is the limit. The highest price that we have seen in the sector has been 4,500 euro, 5,000 euro per square meter, which there are only few buildings like that. So we can go around Tirana, we can see there are only maybe 5 buildings in downtown area. If you can tell me more than 10 buildings with 3,500 euro per square meters, I will be surprised. There are few of them, only few of them. The general price, if we say about the average price in Tirana for buildings built up prior 2015, is around 1,200, 1,300 euro per square meter. The new dwellings start with 1,500, 1,600, and it goes.
But you're not counting as well these projects which are currently still being built, but they're being sold off plan for very high.
Yeah,
so then it becomes more.
We need to understand. So the real estate cannot be done out of TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. So we need to hire a professional, a realtor, to make calculation and to discover us all the options. And if you go from the Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram to the reality, for sure it is 20-30% less.
So you think a lot of these people
a lot of this price is not the real price, especially if the property goes above 3,500. It is too difficult to be sold. So this is why we have the legislation. So it's been introduced in 2022, the new legislation for the real estate professionals. So now it is a time in Albania, like it is everywhere in the Western, go and hire a licensed realtor, and he will tell you all the options and the reality in the market.
What I think needs to happen in Tirana, let's focus on some solutions, because identifying the problems is the easy bit.
The first solution is go and hire a licensed realtor.